Welcome to Rom Wills Money Matters. Think about how you dealt with money this past year. Now it's New Year's Eve, and I talk about money on this channel. One of the things that you want to do is think about how you dealt with money. Did you save it? Did you invest it? Did you manage it well? Were you spending it crazy? I want you to think about all of that. Think about how you spend. Did you have enough? Did you have to borrow money? Did you have to borrow money from people? Think about every single thing that you did with money. Now, if you got a great savings and a great investment and all this other money for stuff, okay, think about that too. But let's be real out here. A lot of people, they really aren't thinking about how they spending their money. They just spending it willy-nilly on whatever. That's why you have somebody, they making high five figures or six figures or whatever, but then they living paycheck to paycheck. They not managing their money well. Now, if you up there, you should be managing your money well. What are you spending your money on? Are you spending it on useful things? Or are you just spending it on high price clothes that you wear one time, or some car that you really don't need, just to keep up with the Joneses? Or are you spending it on projects? You might have a house or something, you spend it on projects so just that, your neighbor got a nice new driveway, so you thinking, oh, I gotta get one too. Think about it. What did that do for you? Your driveway was okay. Now, if your driveway was jacked up, okay, fine. Or if you needed some work around your house, definitely. But a lot of times people spending money and they don't really need to spend money. Think about that. Think about everything. Just sit back and just meditate on it. Think, oh, wait a minute. Because you know what, and I've said this before, it's not so much how much money you make, it's how much you spend. That's why you can get somebody, they could be making minimum wage, but then all of a sudden you check them out, they got a lot of investments, they got savings, they got extra money. That's because they limit how they spend their money. Meanwhile, somebody making a lot of money, they could be making, we gotta get past the high five figures, six figures, and they're broke. And I've met people like that. And they'll just be spending their money willy-nilly and can't figure out how come they don't have any money when they really need something. I want you to think about that. You got to think about that, because no matter how much money that you're making, you're the one bringing it in. You're the one that has to do it. See, remember something about money. It's not alive. Take that dollar bill out of your wallet if you still carry dollar bills. Put it on the floor. Step on it. It doesn't move. It doesn't scream. It doesn't do anything. It's a piece of paper with some numbers on it and some color on it. It definitely means something, but really it's an idea. Or think about it like this. How many people are really using just their credit cards or doing stuff online? They're not even using regular dollar bills or anything like that, or coins or anything like that. They avoid it, but it's still money. It's an idea. And that's something that you have to really think about. The idea of money. But then if you're spending it a lot, nobody's forcing you to spend it, Nobody is forcing you to spend it. Nobody is forcing you to buy that expensive car or those expensive clothes, Or even the home that you're living in. Nobody is forcing you. You're making the choice to spend that money. If you don't have money, if you don't have enough money to live on, ultimately it comes down to your choice. As I've said, and I've seen it. I've seen people not making that much money and they living well. I'll give you an example from my own life. There was a point where I was making above minimum wage, but I wasn't making that much money. Not like some other people. But yet I had always had a savings of at least 500, which I had to use one time when, my car ran into this deer and messed up some stuff. And when I took it to the insurance, it was right there, even though I wasn't making that much money. I was still had the money. I still had a decent savings and everything. It was all in how I was managing it. It was all in how I was managing the money. Meanwhile, somebody making way more than I am, way more than I was, making way more. Or even now, I make a good amount of money, but even now there's people who make way more, which will put them in an upper category. They having trouble. Nah, you don't have to be that way. Money is a tool. That's it. It's not alive, it's a tool. It's a tool depending on how you use it. So think about the past year. How did you use it? Did you use it well? Do you have a good savings and all of that? Which is good savings at least? Or an investment fund or an emergency fund? Are you able to travel with that money and still have money left over? Are you living paycheck to paycheck? Let's talk about that for a second. If you live in paycheck to paycheck, it's never a good thing. Never. I don't care how much money you're making. You don't want to live paycheck to paycheck because especially if you're paying attention to the news, you get a lot of people being laid off, losing their jobs all of a sudden, the businesses going bust, whatever. You don't want to live, period. I don't care how much money you're making. You don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. You want to at a minimum, I'm saying at a minimum have at least a month's of worth of bills. And I'm saying that's at the bare minimum, being able to cover everything for a month. I'm saying at that's a bare minimum. Really, people say 3 months. I would say as long as possible, but at bare minimum. But if you're not at that point, you need to think about some things. Because what I'm seeing out here, I'm seeing stories about people getting laid off all of a sudden. They thought they had a job. They go in thinking do. All of a sudden they get laid off, or they leave the job. It could be 1,000 things. But then if you can't cover that period, if you can't cover an emergency, or like I had a medical emergency last year, but all my bills were still paid and everything. You got to think about that. Just think about that. Seriously, sit down and think about that. You don't have to talk with anybody. Write it down if you can. Really meditate on that. Think about how you spent money in 2024, okay? No matter what. That's very important, all right? You want to do that, all right? So anyway, that's all I have for right now. I want y'all to think on this, and y'all know the deal as always. Let's go make that money.